This guard thought that because he held a pistol, he was in control. He had already made the mistake that would cost him his life. Shorty leaned back a fraction against the muzzle of the guard's pistol, pushing it down into the small of his back, and raised his hands in apparent surrender. As he did so, he glanced over his shoulder to make sure the guard was not faking it, with 2 fingers against the spine while he held the pistol back in his other hand. The glance told Shorty all he needed to know. He continued to raise his hands and pivoted on the ball of his left foot, dropping his left arm as he swung round to sweep the gun out and away. In the same movement, he swung his right fist, smashing it straight into the guard's throat. The only noise was the thud of the blow. With his larynx destroyed and his windpipe blocked, the guard could neither shout nor breathe. He was already helpless, but Shorty still carried on the fluid movement. As the guard began to fall backwards, his assailant's right hand followed through from the punch to seize his hair and jerk him forward again until he was almost bent double. The left hand swung down to strike at the top of the guard's spine. The impact of the blow with Shorty's extended second knuckle dislodged one of the discs and severed the spinal cord. The guard was dead within seconds. Still holding on to the hair, Shorty lowered the body soundlessly to the ground. As the body gave a last convulsive jerk and lay still, Shorty released his grip on the hair and slid his hand down to the neck, using his forefinger in a final check for a pulse at the carotid artery. There was none. In the space of a single heartbeat, the guard had gone from standing with a gun at the intruder's back to lying dead as stone at his feet. The only noises had been the impacts of the 2 blows, barely audible above the sound of the wind. Shorty was not even breathing hard. He looked around, raking the shadows with his gaze. Nothing moved. He was annoyed with himself because he had allowed the guard to surprise him, and knew he had been lucky to escape so easily. But he had no regrets for the guard's fate. He was just one more obstacle to be overcome. He crouched down again and searched the dead man's pockets. There was a bunch of keys, including one that he guessed would unlock the padlock on the main gates. But there was no key for the lock on the magazine. Site security was slack, but not that slack. He stepped over the body and resumed work on the padlock. After a few more minutes' work, there was a faint click and it dropped open. He swung the door of the magazine wide, stepped inside and shone the shielded, narrow beam of his torch around the shelves. The magazine was almost empty. It contained only 2 blasting caps and 2 4-ounce sticks of plastic explosive, but it would be enough for his purposes. He shoved the sticks of plastic explosive into his pockets, showing no more concern than if they had been 2 bits of wood. But he treated the blasting caps with considerable caution. PE was nothing to worry about. In the past, he had even boiled water by burning pieces of it. But blasting caps were an altogether different proposition. A spark, or even a little too much heat, could easily detonate them. They were the size of a pen-top with 2 foot-long trailing electric wires. He made sure that the exposed ends of the wires to each cap were twisted tightly around each other, then placed them in a tin lined with foam rubber. He slipped it into his breast pocket. He left the door of the magazine open and put the padlock in his pocket, then dragged the body over to the gates. He opened them with the key from the guard's pocket and dumped the body outside, then swept away his tracks with a branch from a fir tree. He took off his sneakers and squeezed his feet into the dead man's smaller-sized boots, then walked across the quarry to the magazine and back to the gates. Still moving at the same measured, unhurried pace, he changed back into his own shoes and walked off down the hill. The Jeep Cherokee he had stolen from a commuter station parking lot earlier that day was hidden in the undergrowth at the side of the dirt road a quarter of a mile away. Driving without lights, he went back up the hill to the quarry gates, dumped the body into the back of the Jeep, and then drove away into the night, watched only by the owl returning to